for using AI to improve students' teaching and learning, and teachers' teaching and learning. Tomorrow's session, which is at 2:30 p.m., we'll take a little more boots on the ground perspective.
Center, who has spent the better part of a decade being an expert on state policy. And in her Nexus at AASA, she walks through what is the best practice in state policy, what can we learn across other state templates, and then what do we need to do at the federal level, because there's a whole alphabet soup of COSA, COPPA, HIPAA, CRPA. FERPA's 50 this year. Right? The things you can celebrate when you're in education. Next year it's IDEA. I'm so excited already. But I'm going to put you in touch with Amelia because she will get you that answer. And for anyone else who wants the answer, my email address is there. But literally, I will follow up with you.
I'll answer that security, because I think this is also very much asked a lot about, like, if I put accidentally something in the ChatGPT, oh my gosh, my information is now with the billions of other data sets that are out there. Not on the policy side, but I say technologically, you can actually separate that. You can actually leverage the power of a ChatGPT or perhaps a Gemini and separate it with your student or local data, classroom level, district level. So you can actually have it separated, and then you have your own model. Now that's a little bit more complicated, maintaining it and all that. There are mechanisms, and even companies that we saw yesterday, we had a little bit about Valentine's speed dating, Generation AI connects. If those didn't make it, we have all the information that some of the companies there are building ways you can leverage the power of all that, but also have it very adaptive to, or separate the data and information that you do not want to have out there. So there's ways with technology you can also appreciate that and achieve those same goals there.
So I just love the question about high expectations. Thank you so much for bringing that front and center. I'm reminded of the father of social psychology, Dieterle, and all of his work can be distilled down to two questions. And if you can answer yes to both of them, then you're going to maximize the likelihood of success. If you answer no to both of them, well, you're in a lot of trouble. And if you can answer one of them yes and the other one no, then you know where your work lies. The first question is, do I believe I can do it? Right, so the high expectation, I think, really gets at meeting people where they are, whether that be a student, a teacher, an education leader, a family. Do you believe you can do this? And if the answer is no, then you need to work on helping to set those expectations, but also provide a pathway to help people move from where they are to where they could be. The second is, do I value it? If the answer is, I don't value this, then regardless of your expectations, you're probably not going to find success. So what I would add to the triad is really, the seminal work of Dieterle, who was at this for multiple decades, and really working hard to be able to get to yes on, do I believe I can do it, and do I value it?
So do you want to take the sustainability question, and then Noelle, maybe you can help wrap on the soft launch and the resources that are available?
Yeah, I'm going to throw in an answer for a couple of other questions that I have no authoritative ability to answer, but I'm going to give it anyway because I'm on the panel. So the one about high expectations, I don't know, yesterday AASA, Andrew and company, we hosted, a dozen or so, a little bit more companies to do a bit of a sort of a speed dating showing some AI incorporated ed techs. I don't know, I saw several in there that were, allowing you to sort of dial up the expectation level and then apply, I want to say kind of fancy adaptive testing, right, and other things. And so I think the ability to do that exists. Now it's going to need, like everything else, the proper human touch and teacher touch, but I think that exists. On the sustainability question, if I am reading it properly, are we talking about inference engines sucking a lot of power? Okay. I don't know. I guess I would say I think there's a lot more good that's going to come out of the inference and AI compute use, perhaps than blockchain. I don't know. We can debate that. And newspaper yesterday. NVIDIA has now passed basically everybody, Amazon, Google, and market cap, and basically they sell graphics compute engines, which are generally used as, to support these kinds of things. I don't have really a good sustainable environmental answer, although I think, processors are still getting better, and the large providers, that run data centers are really doing a good job of, being environmentally friendly, right, with those data centers. So I don't know that I'm the expert on any of that, but I think it's fair to say that there's use there. And the final point I would make about the other questions, like the where do you start question, and even a little bit the privacy question, is I think there are about half a dozen states have come out with sort of guides. My state, North Carolina, has. Our CIO, Vanessa Wren. In fact, I think I might have heard Keith and some others around the country say they think that guidance is pretty good, and it talks about places to start and addresses some privacy issues.
I'll jump in with the sustainability. So when I was at Amazon, the data centers, I live in Loudoun County. How many of you all know where Loudoun County? We're the data center capital of the world. 70% of the world's internet goes through our county. So that was on purpose. A lot of people hate it because there's no windows, and now they've got data centers with fake windows. But that was a big issue, not just the power, but also the chemicals and potentially the variety of things that go with the data center. And I know that Amazon has made commitments, as well as maybe the other hyperscales, Microsoft and Google and all those, have all made commitments to make the data center green and very efficient, part of their overall mission. So why I say the data centers are important, that's what powers this AI. AI is not a new thing. Artificial intelligence has been around. It's just that now that AI has become more pervasive, the compute and all the storage and all the calculations and the chips are becoming more mature, the GPU processing. So you're just seeing a hyperscale of that. I'll touch upon the soft start. I think it's a great question. There's three things I mentioned about the policy, making sure you get the AI literacy equalized across your leaders, along with the community. But I would say there's three things that I would say very specific. A, get the plan and the policy landed down well, so there is a game plan. B, professional learning is extremely important, but it's also not just about giving your educators, it's how you use ChatGPT and all that. I think there's a lot about innovation. And why I bring that up is we're just in the beginning, the renaissance of a whole revolution of technology. We're on this upgrade. People don't see that. I've been seeing it for a while at all the big tech companies. Every learner has a device now, hopefully. Access of internet is going up there. So all the ingredients and foundations are there. And so you're going to see more sophisticated models, computing powers happening. You're going to see healthcare, financial services, everything. And then right around the corner, there's something called quantum computing. That's not too far around the corner, maybe, in our lifetimes. Things are going to be that much faster. Give you another example why we have to embrace the innovation and being agile in the district. I remember Microsoft used to every year had an annual Windows update, 95, XP. You don't hear it anymore. It's just coming to your desktop now. Product updates are having subscription based. You don't download and create an executable. You're just running everything on applications through the browser. That's how fast they move. Every 3 months, with new releases, features, and functions. How does that keep up with curriculum? The professional learning, it's extremely different cycle. So I'd say that the nexus is there ways, the third element is experiment. I always think, I know it's hard, but not trying to put another role, but create almost like your own office of innovation. Doesn't have to be a lot of folks, but some group or individual or group of individuals are there to experiment and test things. Play around with it. This is the time to learn. We always tell our learners, hey, it's okay. Try to break it, but you really start to learn many more things well beyond the surface of white papers and marketing design documents. So those three become great elements for you to have a soft skill.
We've got a few more questions, and please keep them coming. I'm going to start here, go here, come here, and then I want this room, side of the room to be represented too. So please, go ahead.
Mine's not so much a question as much as just a thought in terms of, okay, for all of us in the room as we're thinking about moving forward is, I'm always intrigued intrigued with districts who are like, oh, we're gonna ban it, we're not permitting it, and then there are those who are permitting it. I think we have to do some deep self-question to consider whether, self-perception of students, equity, who's going to have the power of AI?
Thousands of students under age 18. Do you have any advice for how to navigate that?
So a couple of equity questions, a question about use for students under 18 and the legal provisions for that. Any other before we turn to the panel? Yes, please, sir.
Yeah, I just, we have a lot of interest in having a specific district level policy on AI use. Right now, our policy says we know it's a thing, we don't know what we're doing. Is there a good template for us to follow? Something that we could draw from as we're working with our school boards to develop a policy that kind of hits the right balance of we're going to be using it, but we're going to be using it.
Thank you. Policy, so equity, age, policy, all of these things probably impact policy. Noelle, do you want to start?
For sure. So policy is a plan, right? So to your question first, AASA is really proud of our partnership with COSIN, or our empowered superintendent. So while I'm working with Andrew to build out our technical support, and we want to have grab-and-go policies and checklists and things to consider, Keith Kruger is over here. COSIN has a lot of those already. So I will pull some of our most recent links and put them on our blog and push them out on my social. But COSIN is an immediate go-to resource with templates, ways to communicate, things to consider. I will flag for you one of the really interesting conversations I had with a bunch of superintendents as we rode an electric bus across Washington, D.C. That was an experience. We were talking about AI policy, and it was really fascinating to see how districts were crafting their AI policy. And some of the superintendents were relaying that they were taking an AI-specific approach, and other superintendents were saying that they had stepped back a little and said, we have a broader policy on best uses, acceptable uses, and student guide for technology in general. And the way they explained it to me was, I don't have a calculator-specific policy. I don't have a computer-specific policy. I don't have an electric door-specific policy. And it allowed them some flexibility to not have to create a brand new policy every time the technology comes out, but to then also that helps the students have an understanding about, I just have general best practices as it relates to technology. So that might be another thing to consider. To the equity point, yes, and yes. AASA's mission has the word equity written in it, and this is the hard work of ethics and governance of AI. And so we are all in on that. I don't have an explicit answer, and as we think about the policies, to your question, Superintendent Duran, one of the things when I made my earlier comment about how we want the federal government in its role to talk about broader approaches, this is where we want the big players who are creating the bigger devices that are going across schools, across sectors of government, across sectors of business. We want them to have the prescription to say you need to have these practices in place to reduce, to the extent that we have documented historically redlining in mortgage access, and the way housing policy is education policy, by the way. So we're there for that conversation on the federal government. To something Phil said that's really hitting my advocate heart, you said there was guidance, and then the districts were like, well, that's not going to work for us, and then the guidance got rewritten, right? Use the power of your voice, because there was another comment on this panel that was basically, AI doesn't take work off of your plate, it's just made you more productive, right? AI is not going to take away the work of schools, right? Gone are the days of just doing instruction. You are truly serving the total child, both the child as a test score, but also that wonderful little human being that has mental and social and emotional needs. And AI is not going to take away that responsibility, and in fact, I would argue AI adds on. So to the extent that there might be a tail wagging the dog and you're going to want schools to figure this out, stand up, know your truth, and you're best positioned to talk about what your students need, what your districts need, what you can work on, and what your community is willing to engage in. And you just highlighted that your advocacy matters. So take up the space to push back if it feels like it's falling down on you, because you know best for your districts. And so that's not an explicit answer to the equity, but I will tell you that as we look at governance, we are there to be ahead of all of this, because we can afford to have only some kids get access, and we know that if there's a sum situation, it's not going to be the kids that are left behind that are starting to sum. It's only going to be an exacerbation of existing equity gaps.
I'll follow up on both those topics as well, because they're very, very consistent with what we're seeing. But in terms of helping districts plan, there are organizations that, like Keith, that have the toolkits, but also organizations that will help you implement, help you go through workshops through your districts, and really nurture it through, because sometimes you kind of need an outside organization. So there are a lot of those that can take those templates and really ground it and localize it to your respective districts, and that's, I think, extremely valuable. Sometimes you see the template, where do I start? What do I do? And then sometimes you need other folks to help through that. And I think they're very successful at that, for sure. If you need their context, I can send it to you. On the equity piece, my technologist thing, I think it's very important. When you all think you're shutting it down, you're really shutting it down. Why I say that is maybe shutting it down for your use of your internal IT. How many of you have ed techs? Whether it's a student information system, a learning management system, content, they're all building AI tool, all of them right now. So you need to make sure that even the ed techs do the procurement and make sure that their compliance is also very much in line with your acceptable use rights as well. And it's also important to understand and unlock that black box, what they call AI. How is it really, truly? How are you data labeling? That's another terminology I'll throw out there loosely, but AIs are trained, the models, so you've heard of that, and the individuals trained it are human beings. And so, for example, you train saying that's an orange, and so you point in the supervisor, I don't want to get too technical, but you point that that's an orange. But other folks, human beings, have unfortunately implicit bias. And so you can alter, train those data models differently with individuals who maybe that's a whole different exercise. It's in the weeds of the technology. But I think the walkaway is ask those vendors, really like it, but why is it, or how are you treating data labeling for very different types of individuals, populations, backgrounds, and that I think is very important for them to explain to you and understand. So again, get beyond that surface level and just double click down until you really understand how they are calculated and how they can tweak it. That's very important, because what works in other parts of the world or countries may not work for you, and that's why it's very important to be very smart.
Thank you, Adrian. Phil's going to give us a quick comment. Noelle's going to close us out, and then when Noelle's finished, let's thank the panelists and move to the next thing.
Thanks. All of you are very smart. I'm just an infrastructure guy. So I'm going to answer the last question that was asked earlier about sort of misconceptions. Now that we've had all these conversations. And I do not decidedly have a large sample size for the statement, but I'll say it anyway. I think that there's a misconception that particularly kids are not thoughtful about the output of GenAI things. I think they're actually more thoughtful about it than we think they are. I think they interact with it with a sense of skepticism, probably more than maybe I do, let's say. And again, my data point there is based on, my kids who decided to get a little bit older in their 20s. Was like, yeah, Dad, I've been using it for 2 years in my PhD. I've been using it in my programming classes in computer science. And I only use it for this part. You know what I don't use it for? To write the potential employer to give me a job. I asked you what I should say. So anyway, it's not a great sample set, but I do think that the kids probably are more thoughtful about it than maybe we think.
So what I will close with is just thank you for taking time to be part of this conversation. This is a quickly evolving field, and as we think about AI, it's not going anywhere, and we want to be here to be a resource. So I love nothing if other than the reality that many of you have already emailed me. I can see it in my inbox. We really want to take this seriously. But Andrew and I, in closing, we really do want to grow this organically from the bottom. We're going to be bottom up. We're going to be number driven in terms of relying on that steering committee to tell us what we need, where we're hitting the spot, and then move forward with building out those technical supports and driving those conversations for policy at the local, state, and federal level. Do join us tomorrow for our part 2 in this conversation, and all the resources in the policy content at NC will be available on our blog and email you directly. Thank you to Aj and the panelists for taking time to be at our conference, and for you choosing to spend a portion of your conference with us today.
Thank you.